замечательное воскресенье в Индиане. Сегодня мы спускаемся опять под землю. Это новая пещера, в которой протекает самая большая, самая широкая подземная река в Америке. Поехали. Час 15. Встречаюсь здесь со своим гидом. И вот как мы плывем. Это какая-то голова лося будет нам на пути. Голова член, что-то похожее. Элефант, это слон. Rock of Age. И сюда. Приплываем. Довольно интересно. Вот такой лодочкой будем плавать. На Пасху приобрету такое яичко из оникса. Сделано в Мексике. Медь. Там же, где продаются билеты, такая маленькая выставка продажи всяких горных пород. Зубы акулы. Сувенирная продукция всякого плана. Вот эти мешочки прикольные. Мешок, и там просто земля, и в ней по-любому какие-то маленькие камни. Потом этот мешочек покупаешь. И открываешь его. То есть ты кидаешь, как во времена золотой лихорадки, и намываешь свои камешки. Какие разные камешки можешь намыть. Потом приходишь сюда и идентифицируешь.
Second rule, do not litter in the cave. So anything that you have with you, just make sure that it stays with you. Don't leave it behind on the path, on the boat, and try not to drop anything in the water as well. And then the very last rule, which is the most important one, is do not touch any of the formations. This is because the oils on our hands, they are hydrophobic. So once we touch a formation so many times, those oils will build up, eventually blocking off access to any water streams. And water does act as a food source, which allows all of those formations to grow. All right, does anyone have any questions before we get started? I don't want to blind myself. I want to be able to see who I'm talking to. All right, so while we are standing out here, I want to talk about the history of the cave before we actually head in. So if we were all standing right here anywhere before early March of 1940, we wouldn't be standing, we would actually be swimming underwater right now. So that ridge up there in front of us, that used to extend all the way out into the parking lot and form a farm pond, which was owned by a couple, George and Eva Glacier. Now, in early March of 1940, 5 days of heavy rain came along, which ended up putting pressure on 3 feet of limestone at the bottom of this pond. It eventually crushed that limestone and drained all the water out overnight, then exposing the entrance to this cave. Now, George and Eva, they did have 6 kids together, so George actually ended up coming out, boarded the cave up for the safety of his family, and the cave then went untouched for 21 years until 1961. In 1961, there was a group of explorers from Indiana University that came down to explore this cave, and over a span of 8 years, they mapped out 19 miles of this cave system. Now today, we actually have 21.8 miles mapped out. We're pretty close to 22, and we are currently discovering even more passageways throughout our cave system to this day. And then in 1972, there was a company before us called Inner Odyssey that leased out this land from George, opening up this area so they could run boat tours. When they opened up their business, they did give away a few free things as well. They had free helicopter rides, free ATV tours, free ballroom dancing on the surface. They even had a tilt-a-whirl up on the surface as well. As you could probably imagine, free to everybody, because why not? And free boat tours to the first family that walked in each day. Now this was a pretty amazing attraction to the public because it was pretty cheap. It just wasn't so amazing for their business, and they did have to file for bankruptcy in a little less than a year, and they had to shut it all down. But in the following year, in 1974, 3 of the original explorers from IU came back. They bought this land, opened up this area as Bluespring Caverns. We have been open and operating ever since, and this year actually marks our 50th year of being open.
Wow.
6, 7 times today. Oh yeah, once you walk into the cave, it's an immediate difference. It's crazy on days where it's like 90 degrees outside and it just bam hits you. Real quick before we head down to the boats, this is what we like to call our twilight zone of the cave. This is just where the darkness of the cave meets all that light from outside. This area is also where all of our animals like to stay as well. So we have birds, bats, salamanders, frogs, and crickets that all like to come in and stay in this part of the cave. All of those animals are outside animals. They don't actually live in the cave, so they usually don't make it much farther than the twilight zone, and they don't stay for very long either. They only like to use this area as a temporary home. And then, if you guys look above us, you'll be able to find all of these formations that line the ceiling up here. Do any of you guys know what these formations are called? Just shout them out if you do.
Stalactite.
Yep, they are stalactites. We're focusing on the stalactites above us. All of these are actually hollow on the inside. So I could take one, break it off of the ceiling, and drink through it like a straw. It'd just be one nasty straw, one expensive straw. If I were to break off a stalactite, it would be a $500 fine and a night in jail. But they get their name, the soda straw stalactites, since they look like soda straws. I just don't recommend trying to use one as a straw. Down, we will stay on the right side of the path as we pass.
I don't know her, guys. Good luck.
I actually broke in. I had to beat someone up for this.
Здесь холодно, хорошо, что кофту одел.
Alright, so real quick before we get started, there are a couple rules of the boat. The first rule is just do not kick the boat. One, it can be pretty loud and distracting, especially with the echo inside of the cave. Another reason we do not want you kicking the boat is if any of you guys kick your feet backwards behind you into a battery well. If you kick that battery, this boat does have a high chance of dying, and they will be stuck pushing this boat back in the dark on what we like to call our extended tour. Another thing I would like to mention, so these things on the side, they look like handrails. They are actually bumper guards. So there will be times throughout the tour where the passageways will get a little tight. So we will be getting close to some walls. There is a possibility that I can also bump those walls as well. So just make sure to keep your fingers off of those. And then, oh my God. Well, Lordy Lord. I love when that happens. Anyway, before the lights went out on us, the very last thing is up ahead. We do have a low hanging ceiling over on this left-hand side. As I get the boat pushed out and turned around, I will get some of us under that ceiling. I'm going to go ahead and push the boat out.
How deep does the water get?
It stays around 5 to 8 feet deep on average. Now the deepest spot that we will come across today will be 21 feet deep. And the deepest spot that we have in our cave actually gets a little over 40 feet deep.
Don't drop the phone. Don't drop the phone.
All right, we are now officially off on a section of the longest underground navigable river in the entire United States. So on this tour, we are gonna go 5/8 of a mile up the river. There will be a point where our boat can't fit any farther, so we'll turn around and do another 5/8 of a mile back down, adding up to about 1.25 miles round trip altogether. Now in our cave system, we have a little over 3 miles of navigable river that you can either take a kayak or a canoe on. If you wanted to, you could swim the river. I just don't recommend because the water is a chilly 52 degrees. Here at the beginning of the tour is actually where we are going to find all of our formations. The reason we have all of our formations right here and not anywhere else is because over in this crack is actually where our main water stream runs and our only water stream on tour. All of our stalactites, of course, need a water stream to be able to grow. That's how they all form. They start with a water stream. Water finds cracks in the limestone. Will drip down over time. The calcite will cause a mineral deposit, calcify, and then form all of our stalactites. We have a stalactite right here. This one's been knocked down with some flooding over the years, so it's looking a little rough. And then we have this stalactite. I think that one's the prettiest one that we have on tour.
Look like the flower.
And we are coming up on some pretty low-hanging stalactites. As we go under these, please make sure to wipe your heads and, of course, don't touch them, as tempting as it is. So these stalactites right here, the bottoms of them, they were actually broken down by the company U.S.A. So right before U.S.A. came in to give their boat tours, they actually noticed that their boats didn't fit past those stalactites. Instead of coming in with smaller boats or a different tactic, They just thought it would be a great idea to come in with some sledgehammers and knock the bottoms of those down. Now they did knock down hundreds and thousands of years worth of growth. It takes a stalactite 100 years to be able to grow 1 cubic inch, and those were getting close to reaching the water as well. We actually have a picture up in our gift shop in one of our glass cases, the difference of what they look like now versus what they used to look like. Over here we are coming up on a pretty large formation. This is what we like to call our elephant's head formation. Now as we go past it, you guys will be able to see an eye up here in the middle, an ear sitting right below it, and then the trunk of the elephant to the right-hand side. And then right next to it, we actually have a swooping pterodactyl for any Jurassic Park fans. A little close to this wall. I just want to avoid hitting the flow stones as best as I can. The flow stones I will talk about a little bit more as we head back through. And since there will be plenty of times where I will get both sides of the boat close to some walls, if I ever do get you guys too close, you are more than welcome to push off the wall since it is for your safety and comfort. Plus, it just gives you an excuse to touch the wall. You're welcome. Crayfish and the northern blind cavefish. And they actually get that name because they are native to northern Kentucky and southern Indiana in our caves that have water in them. Now the crayfish, these are going to be the ones that look like crawdads. I describe them as little mini lobsters because that's what they remind me of. And then a cavefish, that's just about the same size as a goldfish would be. Now, you guys will probably be able to find at least a few of them. So when you find them, they will both be white. They won't have any pigment in their skin since there's no sun down here to be able to transfer any source of pigment. Also, fun / maybe creepy fact about these fish, they are both born completely eyeless as well. Despite having the name blind crayfish and cavefish, they actually just don't have any eyes at all to be blind. Other than that, from time to time, we do get some catfish in our river. Not very often. The last time I saw one was about a month ago. I don't know where he went, but he may still be in here, maybe not. But we do get some fish from the White River when the White River floods. Because when the White River floods, that water will actually back up into our water, which will push some of their fish in here sometimes. And when the White River floods, that means our river is flooded as well. And so a lot of the time they are able to flow over our man-made dam at the beginning and into that, or into White River to our river or vice versa. You would have to scuba dive, which is pretty dangerous. It is about a 30% chance that you don't make it back alive from cave diving. So not many people choose to do that. The last person that we know of that has done that for sure was actually one of our owners. We're about 99% sure he is the last one who has scuba dived from the White River to our cave system. Now that opening where we flow out into the White River, it actually used to be completely open, so you could take a boat or a kayak or a canoe from the river into our cave system. And that's actually the earliest discovering that we have of the cave is in 1874. There was a couple of people that were on the White River and they were able to float their boat into our cave system. The only reason it is completely flooded today is actually because they built the Williams Dam in 1933, which completely flooded that entrance. Right here, we are coming into one of our rooms on tour. This is actually what we like to call our quarry room, or if you're like me, you say quarry and get made fun of all the time. But the reason we call this our quarry room is because it definitely looks like we would have dug these blocks out ourselves, like we were in a quarry. All of these sharp corners through here, they definitely look like they would have been man-cut, but they are actually all naturally cut by the process called chemical erosion. So with chemical erosion, this process happens when the water floods in the cave, and then there's a certain chemical in the water called calcium carbonate that will get in between the cracks of the stone. And then over time, it will erode the stone away and cause it to fall. But specifically right here, before the rocks can fall on their own due to chemical erosion, the water will rush so fast through this area that it will just hit this back wall and break those chunks off. And the reason we see all these sharp 90-degree corners through here is because we're at a 90-degree turn in the cave. And then over here, this rock is actually the closest rock that we have to falling on tour due to chemical erosion. You guys can see that pretty big crack along the top. I highly suggest that you all come back and see that rock fall in a few thousand years. And then coming up here pretty soon is my favorite part on tour. This is usually when I suggest you guys get out your cameras, because I promise you're not going to want to miss this part. All right, is everybody ready for the best part on tour? It's a stick in the mud. I know, it's so exciting. I could barely hold back my smile. I was so excited. So I actually pointed that stick out for a reason, because it used to have a purpose. So that stick, it actually used to act as a property marker. So where we are going through right now, Bluespring Caverns used to not own this property, and so we had to pay the neighbors, Emery and Ruth Bolton, a 5% royalty tax to be able to take their land on tour. They were an older couple when Bluespring Caverns bought this land and became Bluespring Caverns. So eventually, over the years, they did pass away from older age. And we were able to buy that land. And now Bluespring Caverns has over 100. But we have multiple individual owners of this cave system. So Indiana is what we like to call a mineral state. And that just means anything that you own above ground, you own below ground as well. Most of the people who own Bluespring Caverns knows it, but it is believed that there are a few people in Lawrence County that have no idea that they own part of Bluespring Caverns. So about 80% of our county has either never been here or has never even heard of us at all. We have way more people come in from out of the country than we do in our own county to visit our cave system. Now, one of the main reasons that happens is actually because about 2 minutes away from Bluespring Caverns is Highway 50. Highway 50 is one of the last coast-to-coast highways. So when people come in from out of America to come visit us, they usually like to hop on that highway and go across America like that. We're a quick, easy stop, just 2 minutes off the highway right there. So a lot of people like to come in. Also, as we go through here, you guys can touch the water if you would like to. As some of you guys are feeling, the water is pretty chilly. It's at that 52 degrees. The cave air temperature, it does stay around the same. It stays around 52 to 54 degrees all year long, just because that is the average soil temperature of this section of Indiana. 54 in the summer months and then 52 in the winter months.
It's drinkable or no?
No, it's not drinkable. So all of this water, it is all fed from springs. We actually have over 100 artesian springs that feed into this water. The only reason it isn't drinkable is because we have a bunch of farmland on top of us. So we get a lot of cow urine that gets emptied into this water. And that's a big safety hazard. Not very fun to drink. But if we didn't have all that cow urine in the water, cave thunder. I am a teenage driver, don't expect too much out of me. But if we didn't have the cow urine in the water, it would be safe to drink if you filtered it out. The only downside to it then, we do have a heavy content of magnesium in the water, and magnesium does act as a natural laxative. I guess it would be good for some people, but for some people, you may want to pick your battles there. And that magnesium, that's actually, since we have so much of that in the water, that's actually what's turning the water blue as well.
Oh, wow.
All right, so I did stop us here for a couple of different reasons. The first reason is so I can talk about this rock right here that is sitting behind me. So we like to call this rock the Rock of Gibraltar. That is when we look at the ceiling above us, we can see that it's almost completely flat. That's how we know a rock once went through chemical erosion and has fallen. But if you guys look at this flat surface coverage that is above us, it takes up a pretty large, massive surface. So it was... All right, and now we get to do the fun parts on tour, both of our demonstrations. So the first demonstration that we are gonna do, it is gonna be total darkness, because you can't go to a cave and not have total darkness, right? So here in a second, I am gonna turn all the boat lights off. If any of you guys have anything that lights up or glows in the dark, like a phone, a camera, a watch, a flashlight, or anything of that sort, just make sure that they are off or covered up to the best of your ability. And then if any of you guys are scared of the dark, this is just when I recommend to either shut your eyes or you guys can cover them, because I promise you won't miss a thing. That one was even pretty bad, so let me retry. I can make it better. All right, are you guys ready for Cave Thunder Part 2? This one's gonna be even better. So cool. I love Cave Thunder. That sound, it actually would travel all the way out of our cave into the back of our gift shop if it wasn't for that man-made dam at the beginning that was blocking that sound from traveling any farther. Now the reason that the sound would travel so far that way is actually because of our Straits of Gibraltar right here. This is a straight open passageway that lasts for 600 feet. And since it is so straight and open, it really helps carry that sound very well. And we even have the smallest boat. But as we go through here, just make sure to watch your heads and watch your fingers. And definitely be prepared for me to bump the boat a few times. One.
The rock was on
And then if you're on my side, make sure to watch your head right here. sticks and leaves, it's either through our sinkhole. It also can come in from the White River as well. So when it floods in here, we got, like if a storm's heavy enough outside, it can knock a bunch of trees down, limbs down, throw them into the sinkholes. Also, anything from the White River can get pushed back as far as back here as well. And speaking of a lot of sticks, in here, we have some up in the ceiling right there. Just puts it into perspective on how high the floods can get in here. Have I already talked about flooding? Because if not, I want to go over it. Well, if I go over it again, just stop me if you already heard this. But, so with flooding, it only takes about an inch of rain on the surface to be able to flood our cave, because we have 15 square miles of drainage plain. 1 inch of rain will actually bring in around 2 billion gallons of water. Now, with that being said, that is a lot of water, but it is draining into almost 22 miles of cave system, so it will only raise our water level about 5 to 7 inches at most. Now, we do get some pretty scary, nasty floods in here sometimes. About 5 years ago, we did have a flood that rose this water 12 feet in elevation in 40 minutes, with the current pushing at about 65 miles an hour. And we can actually even see the floods get up to over 83 miles an hour as well. There's a crayfish on my side. Oh, I'm right there. My eye. All right, so this room that we have made it into now, this is the largest room that we have on tour. Also, where we are located, the farthest beneath the surface at 86 feet. And this is what we like to call our moon room, because if you guys look above us, you'll be able to see that the ceiling through here, it does look like the surface of the moon. Now the reason it looks like this is because of that archway that we came in through back there. That used to not be as large and as open as it is now. So water used to flow into this area faster than it could flow out, causing the water to circulate, and over time, it created what looks like craters on the ceiling. There's some frogs over here on your guys' side. 1, 2, 3. Those must be best friends. They're frogs. So we have officially made it to our turnaround point. If we were to get off our foot and go straight back, we actually wouldn't make it very far because it is just a dead end back there. But over here, through this side, is where most of our cave system does extend. We have a little over 18 miles that goes back that way. From time to time, we can get a pretty big breeze that comes in through here. Sometimes it feels like a fan hitting you. But the reason that we can get a big breeze is because 80 feet back past that low-hanging ceiling, there is our sinkhole, which is also Indiana's largest conical sinkhole. So it takes up 10 acres of land and drops 137 feet in elevation. So pretty big hole in the ground, can bring in a pretty big breeze.
It's no bats.
Not really. We can get bats from time to time, but not often. And there's a couple reasons for this. So the first reason is because bats know that they're in danger in here since they can flood. Since the river can flood. So they typically like to stay to the drier caves. If we do get any bats, they will be located either in this moon room or they will be up in our twilight zone. And they like those two areas because those sinkholes are so close. If it starts to flood, they have a really quick and easy way out. Another reason that we don't get many bats is because the bats that we have around here, the Indiana brown bats, they don't move in colonies. They'll only move in small groups or even individually. So if we find any bats, we'll usually find 1 or 2 at a time. If we are lucky, we'll find up to 3 to 5. But a couple months ago, we did have like 17 bats in here at once. I don't know why we had so many bats at that time, but we usually don't get that many. Coming up over on my side, there's going to be a stick in the wall up here. So this stick, I like to point it out because it has been up there since 2005, the same time as Hurricane Katrina. So at that time, Bedford did get enough rainfall to be able to flood our cave completely to the ceiling right here. And that stick just happened to get stuck along the way. Hasn't made its way down since. I thought there was a fish right there. I think I do that every time. I see the limestone and I think it's a fish. The sticks in the ceiling are right there. I knew they were coming up here pretty soon. As we pass them one more time. And then right here, we can actually see the rest of the flat surface coverage that took up the Rock of Gibraltar. Starts at that point and goes that way. Pretty ginormous rock that fell. Glad none of us were alive when this happened about 50,000 years ago. And then right here, we are going back past the Rock of Gibraltar, so through this really tight spot. As we go through here, again, just make sure to watch your heads and your fingers. And remember, I will bump the boat as we go through here.
You're good.
Thank you. I may have done this a couple of times, can you tell? And right here, since we are going back through the Straits of Gibraltar, you guys are more than welcome to touch the water again if you would like to.
Oh, crawfish.
As we go through the Straits is typically pretty shallow, where we can see to the bottom. So it's a really good area to find the fish. I don't have much to talk about during the Straits of Gibraltar, so if anybody has any questions, please shout them out at me. If not, I'll just look for fish.
What is the moose head?
The moose head is going to be up at the beginning. It's going to be the last thing that I point out.
Okay.
Yep. Speaking of the moose head, so the moose head and the elephant's head, those are both draperies instead of stalactites. Draperies, they grow a little bit faster, and when they grow, they form thinly. So you could take a flashlight, shine it into a drapery, and see it on the other side. With the stalactite, stalactites form round. So if you were to shine a flashlight through one of those, it wouldn't shine completely through. Crayfish over on your guys' side, and a fish. Crayfish, crayfish. I'm always really good at finding them on my own side. Crayfish. kick in the mud one more time. Right here we have a really sharp rock that we have nicknamed Troublemaker's Peak. And that just means if we have any troublemakers on our boat, we just get to hang them up there by the shirt collar. It's actually how we all got our jobs here. Water supply. And then right here we are going back past the swooping pterodactyl right here. And then the elephant's head. Again, here's the eye, the ear, and the trunk of the elephant. Oh my gosh, he talks so loud. Clayton! You're talking so loud.
Yeah.
I got a tour to do. What? You're taller than me?
I said I could talk louder.
I can talk loud, but they don't need me to talk loud. Because they can hear me.
I will be hear me too.
I don't know.
I'm not in live the entire time.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I totally didn't turn my lights on for you either. Sorry.
You won like 4 tours.
I'm so sorry, guys. I love all of you guys. Not the tour guys.
Bye-bye.
He's actually my boyfriend, so that's why that's why we argue. So right here we are going back under these low-hanging stalactites. As we go under them, just make sure to watch your head one more time. And please don't touch them, of course. This time as we go under the stalactites, if you guys feel for any drips, that's what we call a cave kiss. And that is good luck. Just please avoid hitting your head because that's what we call a cave concussion. And that is bad luck. And we are back to where all of our stalactites are. So here's this pretty one on this side. And then before we get to the end of the tour, we do have one more formation, which is located over here. And this is what we call our moose head formation because it kind of looks like a moose that's bending down to drink some water. Now this formation, it has completely dried out and has stopped growing because there is a little stalactite that started to form behind it that actually stole all of its water source. With everybody still on my boat this time. I usually aim for about a 75% return rate, so this is actually really impressive for me. But I hope you guys all did enjoy your tour. If you did, my name is Hannah. But if you didn't, scratch that name. My new name is now Ava. All right, as I get this boat pulled in and docked up, just please stay seated for me. Have we ever had what? No, we have. Not that I know of, anyway. We've had plenty of people touch the ceiling and touch stalactites, but it's startling when you have someone touch a stalactite under your supervision. You're like, oh my gosh. And I hate yelling at people too. Except for Clayton. He's an exception. Concrete circle right there. I'll meet up with you guys and then we'll walk up together as a group.
river. Hey, Wyatt, Wyatt.
Stand by Dad. I want you to picture of Dad at the entrance.
Пещеры вообще огонь, всем рекомендую, классная штука. На пути домой в Джаспер, Индиана, остановились в еще одной маленькой достопримечательности. Никто не знает, как так случилось, как это попало, как это все сделалось. Но вот здесь есть такой джак-рок. Джак — это как кружка. И то есть один камень сверху второго стоит. Не подвластно законам физики. Сейчас покажу вам, как это выглядит. Надо немножко похайкать, чтобы добраться до этого джак-рака. Но он довольно массивный. И местность не скалистая. Вокруг только лес, да? Деревья, лес. Вот это джакна. Кто-то поставил камешек наверх. Да, массивно. Настенное граффити. $84.